I don't think there's a word in the English language for the exact sound a human shin makes when it meets a steel trash can at about Mach 3, but trust me, you'd recognize it if you heard it. It's not a thud, not a clang. No, it's more like a wet, bone-deep crunch that shoots straight up your spine and punches you square in the soul, screaming, "Congratulations, you played yourself." That was the soundtrack echoing through Oak Haven Estates at 2:14 in the morning on a Tuesday while I was rolling around on my driveway like a greased-up rotisserie chicken trying to catch my breath through my teeth. For 3 heartbeats, my brain just filed paperwork. No screams, just pain sharp and cold marching up my leg in time with my pulse. And of course, my golden retriever Barnaby, bless his half-blind, midnight-crazy soul, decided that was the perfect moment for a game of Flatten the Human. He pounced, stuck a paw right into my ribs, licked my forehead like he was tasting defeat, and wagged his tail like this was all for his entertainment. "Barnaby, get off!" I wheezed, shoving him off and blinking hard, praying my eyes would adjust. They didn't. Couldn't. There was nothing to adjust to. 6 inches from my face, I saw nothing. No outline, no shadow, not even a suggestion of my hand. Looked out to the street, hoping for a glimmer from the sidewalk, but nope, nothing. It was like someone had dropped me inside a giant bottle of ink that reeked of trash juice and wet dog. And you know what? This wasn't a blackout. If I spun around, there was my porch light shining its sad, weak yellow circle barely touching the edge of the mat. The street, though, a black hole. Light just gave up out there, and I knew exactly who to thank for that. Richard. Of course it was Richard. I managed to limp over to the curb, gritting my teeth as my leg throbbed in sync with the pounding in my skull. I squinted into the dark where the streetlight ought to be standing proud between my place and the Hendersons. That beautiful, fake Victorian monstrosity had been dead for half a year now. And I wasn't alone. 12 houses on our block all dropped into the kind of darkness that makes you expect a jump scare or at the very least a cameo from Jason Voorhees. 6 months, I muttered, rubbing my shin. Barnaby sneezed, which in his mind was probably a vote of solidarity. I hobbled back inside, slapped a bag of frozen peas on my leg, and just sat there at the kitchen island, letting the anger rise up cold and sharp. I'm not a yeller by nature. I spent decades as a logistics engineer in the Army Corps, building bridges while people shot at me, threading supplies through monsoons, and solving impossible problems with nothing but duct tape and stubbornness. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for Richard, the HOA president, and his infinite bag of bureaucratic nonsense. At 2:30 a.m., I was ready to call him and let him have it. But I waited because, unlike Richard, I actually try to be a decent neighbor. Instead, I grabbed my phone, fired up the HOA's community app. Neighborly, a digital pit of lost cat alerts and old folks arguing about garbage pickup times. Scrolled to the thread I'd started 4 weeks ago, Streetlights out on Elm and Oak. Still marked as pending review. No comments. I iced my legs, stared out at the black wall beyond my window, and started plotting. Sunrise finally crawled over those cookie-cutter lawns, and I was ready. Not for war, not yet. For process. For documentation. At 9 on the dot, I called the HOA office. Janice picked up, sounding like someone trying to sell timeshares in hell. Oak Haven. HOA, this is Janice. How can I make your day spectacular? Hi, Janice. It's Jack Miller. 404 Elm. Streetlights again. Her sigh practically sucked all the air out of my phone. Oh, hi, Mr. Miller. Right, the lights. Yes, the lights. Janice, I tripped taking out my trash last night. Pretty sure I've got a bone bruise the size of Nebraska. It's dark, Janice. It's dangerous. She dropped her voice to a whisper like she was afraid the walls were listening. I've put the work order on Richard's desk 3 times. He just keeps moving it. Moving it where? To the bottom. He says we're in a budgetary recalibration period because of the clubhouse renovations. Of course. The Oak Haven Clubhouse, home to endless renovations, state-of-the-art FOB system that nobody actually had a key for, and now a bottomless money pit. Let me talk to him, Janice. He's in a meeting. Janice, I can see his house from my window. He's outside leaf-blowing his driveway wearing that Argyle vest. Just put him on. Fumbling muffled noises. And then, God himself, if God was a smug 55-year-old HOA tyrant with a Lexus and a fondness for quoting poetry, picked up. Jack, good morning. Hydrangeas looking a bit wilted. Check your sprinklers. About the lights, well, that's the eternal struggle, isn't it? As Dylan Thomas would say, Richard the First almost broke my leg last night. It's a safety hazard. We pay $350 a month, 200 homes, almost $1 million a year. Where's the money? Why can't we buy a light bulb? He switched gears, suddenly channeling a guidance counselor. Whoa, Jack, slow down. It's not just a bulb. Infrastructure. Underground wiring's old. Got to get a contractor reassess. It's substantial. How substantial? Let's just say it'd require a special assessment. And nobody wants a new bill before the holidays. It's July, Richard. Holidays creep up on you. Look, we prioritized the pool tiles for the community. Heated, imported Italian slate, beautiful. You should see it. I don't swim, Richard. I walk at night. I'd like to do it without a headlamp. Well, maybe you should buy a flashlight. Or put motion sensors on your garage. Personal responsibility, Jack. Can't expect the association to hold our hands every time the sun goes down. He tossed that phrase at me like a grenade. Personal responsibility. Me, the guy who once labeled his spice rack. I asked quietly, "Are you refusing to fix the lights?" "Not refusing. Deferring. We'll look again in Q4. Till then, grab a flashlight. Stay safe, buddy." Click. Deadline. I stared at Richard through my window, blowing 3 leaves off his driveway. He had no idea who he'd just brushed off. That night I started canvassing. Knocked doors. Listened to stories Mrs. Gable afraid to step outside after dark. Mr. Henderson's daughter sprinting to the house after late shifts, the neighborhood slowly turning into a set from The Walking Dead. I took photos, gathered signatures, built a file leverage, not a weapon. 3 days later, chaos found us. Thursday night, sticky air, the kind that makes your shirt cling. I was tinkering in the garage when I heard a scream, not the Hollywood kind, but sharp, real pain. I sprinted outside, flashlight in hand, and found Mrs. Higgins, our resident cookie baker and sweater knitter for neighborhood squirrels, crumpled on the curb, her poodle barking in panic. I couldn't see, she gasped, clutching her hip. Missed the curb. I called 911. The ambulance came the street, suddenly drenched in red and blue, the best lighting we'd had in months. Richard watched from his porch and his silk robe arms crossed, annoyed. Didn't even come down. Just glared, then vanished back inside. Personal responsibility, huh? You want me to solve my own lighting problem, Richard? Okay. Challenge accepted. I dove into the HOAs, CCNRs, slogged through the legalese. Section 4.2, no permanent exterior lighting over 2,000 lumens without board approval. Section 8.1, historical artifacts and educational displays encouraged as long as they're maintained. That's when it hit me, a loophole big enough to drive a tank through. I remembered Sarge's surplus 2 hours away. Called him up. "Sarge, you still got that 60-inch World War II GE Searchlight? The one on the trailer, the 42, sure? It ain't a toy, pal. That's a portable sun." "Perfect," I said. "I'll take it." "And the generator loud as hell." "Even better," I replied. The next HOA meeting was packed, folks talking about Mrs. Higgins, about the darkness. Richard tried to pivot pool tiles, pumpkin festival, unauthorized marigolds, but Mike the plumber called him out. Skip the flowers, talk about the lights. I stood up, folder in hand, and laid it out. If it's really 50 grand to fix rent construction floodlights for 2 grand a month, delay the pool chairs, keep folks safe. Murmurs of agreement. Richard hated every second. No, absolutely not. It'd violate the image of our community, the nuisance clause, the aesthetics. He shut me down hard. "If you're so scared of the dark, light up your own yard, but make sure it's compliant. I'll be watching." "Permission granted, Richard. Thanks." The next morning, Mike poured a 10 by 10 slab in my yard historical display pad, I told him. Sparky, the electrician, ran thick copper, grinning when he saw the monster generator. Sheriff's Deputy Miller dropped by, asked if I was building a missile silo. "Just a light for Veterans Day," I lied. "Noise levels legal." "All right, Jack. Just don't blind any pilots." That night at full dark, I primed the generator, hand-cranked the beast, and brought the general to life. The roar shattered the quiet, my flower beds quaked. The neighbors peeked out. The carbon arc flared white-hot plasma, brighter than noon. I turned the beam slowly until it locked onto Richard's bedroom window. I slipped on my welding goggles, cracked a beer, and waited. Screaming started almost instantly. Richard stumbled out, silk robe flapping, pillow on his head. "Turn it off, I'm blind. My bedroom's melting." "Personal responsibility, Richard," I yelled over the engine. "You said get a flashlight." The neighborhood came out in droves. Kids made shadow puppets on Richard's siding. Mrs. Gable brought me a casserole. Mike nearly choked, laughing. Cops showed up. Officer Miller trying not to smile. "Is this legal?" he asked. "Noise and lighting levels are compliant." It's a temporary historical display and the street's finally safe, I said. Can you dim it? Can't. It's all or nothing. Miller shrugged. Shut it down by 11, Jack. You got it, officer. For 3 nights, the general kept vigil. Night 2. Richard tried to block the beam with his SUV. It just reflected into his dining room, started to melt the dash. Kids camped out, neighbors cheered. Night 3. Richard called, voice shaky, defeated. I surrender, Jack. What do you want? Fix the streetlights. Tonight. He caved. The utility crew arrived baffled by the spotlight, and turns out all we needed was a new fuse and 3 photosensors. By midnight, the street was glowing with a warm, normal light. Real safety. Richard walked over, haggard beat. Is it over? He asked. Long as the lights stay on, I said. He shook his head and shuffled away finally under a working streetlight. Next week, he quit the HOA board. I kept the general tucked away under a tarp in my backyard, a silent reminder. Every now and then, whenever the board floats a new rule banning pickups measuring grass with a ruler, I'd just start polishing the lens out in the yard. Funny how problems resolve themselves. No one wants to go head-to-head with the sun, not when it's parked in my backyard. Now let me ask you, where do you draw the line between rules and common sense? When does following the process cross over into just plain ignoring your neighbor's safety? I want to hear your take. Ever had to battle bureaucracy just to get something basic fixed? Tell me about it. Don't hold back. I promise I read every single story.